it's encouragements and it is disappointments because they did have market authorized therapy. And in one of their talks back in JP Morgan, one of our dear colleagues, he said, there are three P's in this industry. We always need to have it in mind from beginning. Is patients, payers, physicians. And by understanding the equation between those three, they can design our companies and our therapies in much more viable manner. I think, getting too much into the science and not thinking about the feasibility of realizing it as an enterprise, that has been biggest learning, I would say. So I'm excited that people still believe in the industry, although they acquired for much less than it was invested. And I think it's an eye opener for us to really bring the three Ps together and think about the pay model from beginning. Think about physicians who are going to deploy this, and think about the patients and the journey to make the whole thing more accessible for patients worldwide. So that's exciting part, but at the same time, we need to learn from our wrongdoings as well.
I would say that there was a really strong positive outcome from increased funding, and we rode that high for some time. And I think we got a little comfortable in that. So cell and gene therapy is all about peaks and valleys, and we were in a peak for quite some time. So we got comfortable and we got happy and we got excited, and we're now just kind of experiencing that valley. I think the Bluebird situation is a little bit of a result of that valley and indicative of what we're seeing in this space to date, and why everyone's feeling a little bit of this gene therapy winter and a little bit of that challenge. However, it's very commonplace for cell and gene therapy to experience these peaks and valleys. So what I would say to that is we had a long peak. We're in our valley. This is our normal right now. So embrace it, move through it with your colleagues, and await the next peak.
I think it's a wake up call. It's a wake up call that investors are going to be way more careful, and they're going to be way more selective in who they're going to place their bets on. Companies have to look into their cost structures, achieve way more with less, and stretch as much as they can their current cash. Now, the free money for all that happened in 2017, I don't think it's going to happen anymore. I think this is a recalibration of the industry. I think definitely it's a very strong wake-up call. As I said before, the industry has to look outside, get best practices from outside, and apply them to reduce the costs that are really prohibitive. I just saw some presentations of facility design. The amount of million that cell therapy companies are spending in designing the manufacturing facility is unbearable. It's absolutely unbearable. And for the most part, those manufacturing facilities are going to be idle. It just does not make sense. So the wake-up call is know your numbers, do more with less, be much more cost conscious, and eventually you have to enable that you can lower your cost to reach more people, more patients.
Well, again, it shows how important manufacturability is. It's a critical aspect aside of efficacy and safety of the therapy. A therapy needs to be manufactured in a lean and, yes, cheapish way. And for achieving this, manufacturing needs to be considered from the very beginning of the product development.
I think I would expect that to have two impacts. A not so good one, but like I always want to see things a half full rather than empty, a positive one. I think the negative one is that people are saying, well, you see, these products are not able to get to patients. This does not success. I think we need to go beyond that and say, why was that the case? And I think one of the things that I keep insisting is we should not assume that efficacy or good results will carry it. Everything needs to work. Even if you're beautiful in a relationship, you need to work at the relationship. Like Bluebird was a fantastic product, but we need to launch it properly. we need to engage well. So that's what I would take as a positive is let's learn of doing things properly. Let's not assume that it will happen by itself. Let's be resilient and work. And it goes back to what I said before. Patient access is essential. There's multiple elements that lead to that. If we work at all of them, particularly when the product starts to be used commercially and we ensure that it's done properly, we're doing what needs to be done, treating patients and return on investment. So Bluebird is a kind of leading. They've suffered first. They taught us now about this. Let's make sure that we bear this in mind in terms of adapting our work to make sure we launch the products well. And so it would have been for the good of the field, the example that they gave us.
I think in the case of Bluebird Bio specifically, there are positives and there are negatives. I mean, the key negative is obviously the fact that we see really a pioneering company that sort of has engineered its products and has taken them to market, sort of being sold for a fraction of it was once valued at. The positives are that, it remains a positive case study, with a revenue generating company that has taken to market and does showcase the potential that gene therapy specifically have to offer the market. And so I think inevitably the downturn and the current economic climate have kind of compounded the effect of Bluebird Bio and what's transpired. But we will undoubtedly go full circle and come back from this.
I think that's been a very interesting news piece. It's certainly generated a lot of discussion. I think some of the initial response was quite pessimistic. It's very disheartening to see a company that was valued at 10 billion being sold for under 30 million. I think when you look at the details of the deal, it's not quite as bad as many people make it out to be, just from the headlines. The overall deal has milestones in it, which look potentially to be achievable milestones, which will trigger further royalty payments. And it will see the overall amount paid to Bluebird approach their kind of market share value at the time of the sale. So there's opportunity for optimism there. They were obviously acquired because the company saw promise in their therapies. They've got 3 approved therapies. Something needs to happen to make them more commercially appealing, commercially viable, reduce the cost of goods, increase accessibility. I think it goes to show that just getting approval isn't the be all and end all. That therapy really has to be deliverable. Bluebird Bio have been a trailblazer in the sector. But other companies shouldn't necessarily be disheartened by this. They should just take away that they really need to focus on efficiencies, cost of goods, scalability, and accessibility of their therapies.
Yes, Bluebird Bio. Oh, what a sad state of affairs. That was really, really a huge pity. Even more so because just a few years ago, Bluebird Bio was the real doyen of cell and gene therapy, particularly gene therapy, and it was valued at an enormous amount of money. And for it to have come to the stage of having 3 approved products and really needing, for want of a better description, a bailout by private equity is very, very sad. I think the knock-on that this has had is from the perspective of investors, a lot of them are looking very hard at 1, rare diseases, and 2, autologous gene therapies. And I think this is making a lot of people think very hard about how do you generate value. Before this had happened, rare diseases hadn't been worth it. And then Henry Tamir with Genzyme came in and actually showed that rare diseases could be very, very profitable. And when we moved into gene therapies, there was this automatic assumption that, well, if you can be done with zymes and with large molecules, we should be able to do it with cell and gene therapy. And that's kind of been the working hypothesis. And rightly or wrongly, what's happened with Bluebird seems to have stalled all of that. And people are now stopping, thinking, hang on a moment, is that really the working hypothesis? Is that reality because of what we're seeing? So I think it's put a lot of companies developing those kind of gene therapies back quite a long way. And so we need to think very hard as to how do we generate value for rare and ultra rare diseases with autologous gene therapies.
So lots of thinking to be done there.